All right. Hello, everyone. The other Jared here, along with Dan, also known as Grunting Pixel. And we
That's me.
are doing something new. Never been done
No one's
before.
ever done this
No
before.
one's ever done this before. No one's ever looked at ghost videos and reviewed them and criticized them and tried to debunk them. No one ever in the history. So
At least nobody this pretty.
we expect, no, we demand that this takes off and becomes a huge hit. So, with that being said,
I would like to just make it clear that Jared does not speak for all parties involved. Thank you.
I do. I would like to make it clear that I'm just kidding. Uh, what happens here? So the basis is that I want to believe. I have some things that I've seen in my life that have proven to me that these things exist, and they're evidence enough for me. Dan, on the other hand, has not, and he is going to debunk every video that I throw at him. And I'm going to try
Well,
to convince him that he's wrong, and
le-
also that just because something can be debunked doesn't necessarily mean that it is, or doesn't mean
yeah,
that it's not real.
let's frame this in a little bit better light.
Hmm.
The best way to describe it, again, being completely original, Mulder, Scully,
Yes.
basically, where I want to believe, but I've just yet to see anything that has compelled me enough.
Hmm.
And Jared just does. Like he does believe. So
Yeah.
his goal with this is to provide things that he thinks might convince me, and then I will see if I am convinced. And if I'm not, I will do my best to explain why I'm not convinced. And we should have
Hmm.
the ability to draw all over our screens
Hmm.
and do all of that and have some fun with it. And eventually, depending on how these go, because there's been quite a few videos that I've seen where I've not only can I very clearly tell why it's fake. It's been doctored.
Hmm.
I also can do that myself. So I'm gonna put my money where my mouth is on some of these eventually. For those watching live, that won't happen, but in a recorded post thing, it'd be fun to kind of do that. So yeah, Jared tested with his little mouse there, drawing on
Just
there,
a
and
little
then I can
example.
also draw
So yeah,
something there
this
too.
is the object right here that we need to focus on for this video. However, the other thing is that I don't want to just be that dumbass who believes without
Oops.
putting any thought into something. He has insight. He has a degree where he can.
I
Here's a
can
background. What's your degree in? I already forgot.
It's technically a bachelor's of science, but it's
Oh, I
it's
got
computer
that.
generated imagery. It's
Yeah.
just it's just I work with computers to make fake shit. I work on
Yeah.
games. I've worked on films. I make a lot of fake stuff and make it look really real, which is kind of why I think that a lot of this stuff I've
Yeah.
I've seen behind the curtains. I've seen the code, so I kind of know some of the trickery
So
and what to
basically,
look
this
out
is
for
somebody's
with
swimming
stuff.
pool right now. This isn't a real ocean scene. No,
Actually, no, this is real. This is all completely CGI. Now, Jared sent this a long time ago. I saw it that one time. I remember loosely what this is, but let's not dance around it anymore, buddy. Let's go ahead and watch
okay.
it.
Well,
So I'm
first of
gonna
all, the credit goes to Captain JRD, the YouTube channel that I got this from. And the real stuff starts happening in about 30 seconds, but I don't know. Like, I don't want to be one of those guys that explains the videos and then shows it. Let's watch the video and then talk about it. So let's
no,
do
let's
it.
just talk about it. Here we go. Okay, so we got looks
Make
like
me
a bottle
believe.
cap opener with teeth.
Mm-hmm. Bottle opener. That's your go-to.
Is that not what that looks like? You can open two
Uh,
bottles with that.
I don't know, man. It
No, you know what it
looks
is
a
actually,
lot
Jared?
like my ex.
It's a brain opener. It's gonna open my mind. I'm gonna
Yeah, it's a
believe. I'm gonna
brain
believe.
opener. It is a unique shape for what is about to happen. Why it
The
is
the
that
the
shape is.
prongs, the prongs on either end, they look like the asses of earwigs.
So you can see the equipment here in the video that they are underwater diving, and this is something they record. No, no, oh shit! It changes
Now it's
into
a
something.
now it's a coctopus.
Yeah, I
So I
do.
mean,
I do want to
go,
say that it does. The image of that looks way better than the image of everything else, which is interesting. But it's alien technology, so. But it is. I don't know. It
Is
could
it
just be
alien
a.
technology or is it just alien?
I mean, we know octopus who can kind of do something similar, right? Why is it dancing? Okay, see that there was something there that I can
That,
we rewind that a little bit?
yeah, and it's funny because I think we both picked up on it.
Yeah, I didn't see this before. Um, it's when it's doing this little dance.
Right
Right, that yeah,
about
it's
right about here.
yeah. So there's a little shadow, which bravo if this is fake for the shadow, but the fact that when it does its little dance, it does seem kind of man, it's really hard to.
So
How do we slow this shit down?
that would
Right
be. I
here.
mean, I can straight up slow it down. Let's that's quality. It's playback speed, 50%. There we go. Now we're at halftime.
There we go.
What I will say already, as we're going into this, is I do believe this is computer generated.
Okay.
Um, but there are some really cool little details that shows that if this were computer generated, that the artist was very diligent with quite a few things to really try to make this feel as believable as possible.
So like
Which,
there's even a little shadow over here, like when it's dissipating, that it creates
yeah,
that I feel is like the icing on the cake for me.
well, and that would be the thing I would say primarily. Let's go all the way kind of back here. So when I'm looking at this, what I'm looking for are move or
Maybe it's a Death
um
Eater. Maybe.
could be. I'm looking for, so I'm going to talk kind of mumbo jumbo
Nerd
techie
moment.
stuff. But basically, I'm looking for issues with tracking. And what tracking essentially is it is being able to find points in the plate or the footage that already exists and using that as reference points so that as the camera moves, whatever CG element you have in there moves with everything in a very believable way. When you start getting this sort of thing where they kind of swivel and dance a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
that sort of thing is a really telltale sign that something has been faked. And
Okay.
so far, I would say that this is done fairly well. I think something that is also in here that's really nicely done is these kind of foreground, middle ground, and background elements of like dust and particles.
Mm-hmm.
Something that does stand out to me, though, and it was really quite obvious right there, is that they're all moving at the exact same rate. And when you have things that are closer to you or further away, you end up with a parallax effect, which is where, like, you ever watch, you look out your car when you're driving and the trees are whipping by, but the mountain is just barely moving in the background.
Mm-hmm.
That's the same sort of effect here. And when I'm looking at these little dots, they're all moving pretty much at the exact same uniform weight. They're
So what you're
not
saying, this
really,
is
I mean, a
actual underwater
little bit of
footage.
parallax here.
This thing was placed on top of the like layered on top of the
Yeah. So
actual
not
underwater
only would
footage.
this have been layered on, but some of these particles
Well, what if
and
it's just
dust.
an underwater dive and they just added this one CGI element? Is
Um,
that
uh,
possible?
I mean, it is possible, but one of the other things that's really nice about what they did here is it's kind of low res, so it
Of
kind of
course,
helps
all the
hide.
greatest videos are.
Yeah, exactly. But they're all moving so uniformly. Like there's a couple things here that aren't, but for the most part, this is all moving very,
Oh,
very
that's a
uniform. And that's kind
fish.
of interesting that it's like
Looks like
wiggling.
a fish.
So that's interesting. Notice here, and this actually to me looks like a tracking error. Notice how the camera bounces.
Hmm.
Something jostled the camera and the camera's bouncing here. And this all move
Okay. Wow.
weirdly
So
with
that
it.
tells me that this is kind of a little bit more realistic, right?
Yeah, we're getting
Like the
well,
ship's
well,
shaking, so everything's shaking with it.
kind of, but it's moving in a way to me that feels a little unnatural. Like
Okay.
it kind of is. And these foregrounds, so there's a couple of ones here, these foreground elements, this
Hmm.
piece here, that's showing actually a lot of parallax, which is really good. I think a lot of what we're seeing in here, these particles are probably also in there, but they also have
Look at
probably
that.
layered a bit on it as well. But the
Look at all
main
the
thing that I've
foreground
really,
stuff moving, like the little particles. Not to interrupt, but like the blurry particles. See the blurry particles moving? with the
Yeah.
camera. So I mean, this kind of to me shows that this is like a flowing water stream, and there's just they're normal if you've ever been snorkeling, just debris. But
One of the
again, I'm not a
things that
diver, so.
one of the things that I think that they've done very, very well is the shadow that comes off this thing.
Hmm.
First off, it's really, really
Yeah,
soft,
look at that too.
very diffused.
Looks like it's
Um,
snowing.
all of the light coming through the water and the
Hmm.
how deep they are and how many different sources of light would actually cast a pretty soft shadow like this.
Hmm.
I'd be really
The
interested
zooming in
in
and out though, like, I mean, it's how much work would it take for somebody to put together something like this with the zooming in and out and all of this? Like, are we
the
talking like a professional 20-hour deal, or like, what do you think? If
I
this is
think
fake.
that as long as you had good trackers placed in it, because like that's usually the hardest part. That's why if you ever see people doing like mocap or any sort of really just heavy CG thing, is they'll have trackers everywhere because any sort of inaccuracy in your tracking makes matching a 3D fake world and the real world really difficult.
Hmm.
So the biggest challenge that you have is making sure that you get all that detail tracked in a very believable way. Now, this is an underwater sort of thing here, and there's actually quite a lot of detail here. Let's just say, for sake of argument, that the initial footage of this wasn't this blurry. We would have a lot more high res detail that we could use
Hmm.
for trackers, and there's probably actual tracker markers that they've used that they've just painted out
Hmm.
in post to kind of remove some of those things if they were doing it this way. But you could also do it without that. Like you could take your camera, put it in a case, go down under like your pond and do this as long as you knew how to track your details well enough.
Hmm.
Now, the asset itself is pretty high quality, um, and very unique, which I think is kind of cool. And I like that they use a lot of elements that you would see from like what's the word I'm looking for? I just completely drew a blank. But you would see it in what's the word? Where the thing dies in a rock and then it's still there millennia later.
Fossil.
Thank you, fossils. You would see in like those really old fossilized, like
Mm.
early life form sort of things. They're implementing a lot of that kind of detail in here. Um, let's skip ahead a little bit. But again, I do like the shadow that's coming in here. That helps really kind of ground it inside of this uh this believable frame that we have here. And then the movement. So this is what's interesting. And I would actually say some things that I find make it a little bit more compelling to me is that the zooms appear to be analog. Like they don't appear to be like done
Yeah.
digitally in post, which actually makes tracking more difficult. But that was kind of interesting. I'm going to slow this down
But
real
you could
hard.
see the things moving around too when they do move the camera, right? Like the 288 up there. I need to remove this. There we go. Um,
See, it feels a little wobbly, but that's a pretty good track that they have on this at the moment.
but like, so here's something. So you can see.
And there's a lot of compression from YouTube too, so this is making it a little bit harder to tell, is that an artifact from the render or is that an artifact from the compression? But I'm seeing a lot of
But
yeah,
check
okay.
this out right here. This thing right here. You can see it as this camera moves. Like this moves. Which so that's an extra layer of detail you got to add to this.
Sure. But what I'm noticing here, and again, this could be a compression artifact, so take it with a grain of salt, but I'm seeing actually some distortion on these pebbles as this frame comes back up and it kind of jostles.
Hmm.
Yeah, it could be a compression artifact.
I don't
Um,
I don't know what that means, but yeah, I know you kind of
it,
explained it, but
yeah, I mean, compression is just it's what allows video files to be smaller. So it's taking a lot of
ah.
details that are like the same rough detail and then making them just larger pixels. Essentially, is the best way to
Hmm.
describe it. But that can cause some weird like shape distortion and artifacting along the sides of your asset.
Hmm.
Um, Wait, let's let this go a little bit further here. Let's play it out a little bit.
I like all the details.
I love this shadow. That shadow is so good at
Hmm.
grounding this thing in this frame. Like it's doing a very good job with that. And I like that it's just kind of slowly coasting, and they've seemed to have matched it fairly decently with some of these other just kind of particle things going here. Here's where we can really see that parallax effect that I was talking about. Look at how fast this piece is moving versus that piece. This
Hmm.
one completely overtakes it because it's closer to the frame than that piece in the background.
But see, that seems realistic to me,
Sure.
and like an ocean setting. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Uh,
there's multiple ways that you can achieve that. And honestly, like I said, a lot of this probably already existed in the footage.
uh,
Here's another great example. Watch the shadow. I really like what they did there with that. But again, that's something that you could absolutely handle with a few area lights and, you know,
so scale 1 to 10. Let's do some grading here. So scale 1 to 10 on believability. Where are you at? Because that's the most important.
that's an interesting question.
All right, we'll get back to that one.
I would say there's
Oh.
two. See, to me, that edge, it's just really soft. That almost looks like it's an overcompensation of
Could it just be quality of
blur.
the?
But notice how the rest of the detail in the background is sharper. So it looks like what they're trying to do is they're adding a focal blur to it because it's trying to make it look like it's out of focus, which is
Mhm.
just kind
It
of working. I mean, it looks pretty
does
good.
seem to take over the focus. Yeah.
Um, here's what I'll say. I don't find this very believable. Mostly just because of what it is. What kind of alien is a can opener and then a disco octopus?
All of them.
Every alien probably, you're right.
Yes.
Um, so that to me is part of what the believability is. But I will say, in terms of creating a image or footage or whatever,
Well, that was my next. Was on
this is really
complexity.
well done.
one to
Yeah,
ten
no, this is
complexity.
a very well done creature.
So believability, you're pretty low on the scale. Complexity, you're pretty high on the scale, like 9, 8 or 9 maybe.
Yeah,
But a high complexity means a lot to me because if it's real, then that complexity is always gonna be high, right? Either otherwise it's faked. So
yeah,
um,
they've done really. And one of the things that's actually really clever about this too is if I were going to create if I were to fake this personally, this would actually be a really good kind of entity to fake because again, a lot of what I'm looking for is tracking errors and stuff like that.
mhm,
But in the ocean, it's currents and the currents are moving in different areas. So you can actually have a lot of that warble and wiggle that you get from improper tracking and it just
mhm,
looks more natural in this
mhm,
sort of situation because it's floating and floating objects wiggle and things like that.
mhm. I
I
mean,
want
obviously, like we have the capabilities of doing this because if you're watching a movie, you would expect all of that, what everything you're seeing here, except for it being 4K and you know. But like I'm not denying that the capabilities are there. So if this is like a preview for a movie, sometimes that gets caught up in a lot of the discussions. It's like, um, well, why does this exist? Oh, it was a preview for a movie, and people wanted to believe it's real because it's a So I don't know
well,
any of the background on this story, or on this
and a lot
video.
of 3D artists, that's their whole point. Their whole goal is like, I want
Mm,
to make something and I want it to look real. I want to
no.
convince you that this is a real thing. So a lot of people will actually use these as tests. So like,
Mm,
can I make something look so good that people will believe it's a real thing?
mm. Can we go back to the transformation when it transforms? Can we
Yeah,
slow that frame?
that's actually coming up right here.
No, I meant from its original shape that
Oh,
we were watching to. Well, we can get to that too because that's going to be just as important. But at that point, it's all if it's all CGI, it's irrelevant.
yeah. So they have a lot of really good sims happening on here. I
Mm.
would say that the
See, look at the shadow work though, because it's See, then shadows on the right, and so it's like it's
The
following the
way that that
lights.
tears at the very end and moves, it doesn't really preserve its momentum very well. Right
Hmm.
here, it's slow and then it like whips away really quickly at the end. That feels a little weird.
Hmm.
But yeah, let's go back to the transition.
I just want to see as it goes from that to because that's I feel gonna be the big telltale
Well, and it's
sign.
also I find it kind of interesting that they
Oh,
zoom
they
all the way
zoom
out
out.
when that
Yeah,
happens,
it's almost
which
like
is kind of
zooming in when you want to see something. Now they're zooming out when they want to see something.
yeah, but they could also do the argument like, well, we were just looking at it, and then I
This
zoomed
got
back in
closer.
because
We
it
had
was
to zoom out.
as soon as it transitioned, that's when I was like, whoa, I want to get back in there and take a look at that.
Yeah, maybe their camera was at its maximum down position. I don't know, but yeah.
There's
Now you're gonna
more.
zoom in,
There's more that
and
I want
now
to
it's the thing. See, there,
see.
it's that. So, for me, you, all of the argument you've made is great, but for me, the zoom out when the transition happens and then the zoom in, because we know they can zoom in now. The same. Why would you zoom out? Why would you zoom out and then it transforms and then zoom in unless that zoom out is so hard to replicate in a CGI effect that you had to zoom out to make it more believable?
I don't think they zoomed out because they wanted this to not look CG.
Well, but why zoom out otherwise? Look at this zoom they can do.
I
Um,
I don't know,
like
but I
I
that's
feel
not that would
like,
never be a thought that I would have. Is like, oh, I should zoom out to make it sure that it's proved that it's not fake.
well, like the transition. Why not zoom in on the transformation? Why zoom out?
Well, because
Transformation
right now they
happens.
technically aren't knowing that it's transforming. It's just kind of been this disc shape. It's only once it
Uh,
transforms do they go back in.
all right, so you see this. Why are you not zooming in right now? Why are you waiting?
I'm trying to look for some telltale reflections
It's just a
on
blob.
here.
So now, okay, so maybe there was a delay. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we're also seeing this in very slow mo. If you actually watch it
Uh-huh.
in normal speed, it's zooming out pretty
Okay, yeah.
quick, and then it starts to transform, and then they're
Like,
like,
oh shit,
"Whoa, I should zoom back in."
Jerry, get in there.
Yeah, Jerry. What? No, Jerry.
Oh, Jerry.
Um,
I don't know. It's an interesting video to me.
no, it's really it's really well done. Like
Yeah.
I will give it that 100%. And one of the things that I think super clever about it too, again, if I were going to be doing this is if I were going into this with the intent to fake it, one of the things that's really I keep going to the wrong thing to slow this down. One of the things that's really beneficial is again, they have all these different particles here,
Mm-hmm.
which are essentially flow maps for them. It's showing where the current goes. So you could actually use these particles to help track your thing. So as the particle goes this way, you know that, okay, then therefore the creature must also go this way.
Oh, because
Now
current.
notice that as
Yeah,
soon
yeah.
as these go this way, then the creature goes that way. And then as soon as they go this way, the creature goes that way. You can actually use those as
Gosh.
reference points as to ground your 3D animation into
Yeah, I mean,
this.
you really gotta be good at this shit to do it
No,
that.
it's like I said, it's very well done.
Okay.
It's really well done. And I think that's what makes it so cool. Like some people will see this type of stuff and they'll be like, somebody really tried to trick me, but I'm too smart for that. And it's like to me, I just look at this and I go like, that's awesome that you made it that convincing. Like
Yeah.
I think that's cool as heck.
But it's still fake as shit.
Well, your words, not mine.
Yeah. Well, Bravo. Whether it's real or fake, I can't. I don't have the expertise. Based on what you said, I can see where you're coming from. There was a
The
point.
material work on that is really good, and like the
Yeah.
subsurface scattering they have with the lights
It
glowing through it is really
it
cool.
does
It's a
look
very
fake.
high quality asset.
Like what I'm looking at right now looks fake, but like
It
I don't
doesn't feel
know.
like it's grounded in this well enough. Like we're getting
Uh,
some of this kind of I wish I was an easier way to zoom. We're getting some of this fall off here, this kind of
uh
this blue from the rest of the scene kind of falling off on here. But look at how stark the color difference is between these two. Now there will be a color difference. 100% because this is much closer to us physically than this coral and rock and stuff
Yeah.
is. But one of the things that's a really good telltale sign of whether or not something's been composited in is when the max brightness and the max darkness of the whole frame does not match the max brightness and the max darkness
Hmm.
of whatever element is that you're compositing into it. They've done a pretty good job here. I think, especially when it's really far away. Like, see how this is very tinted blue at this point? That's, to me, showing that they've gone through enough to at least consider how the depth of the water works and how that kind of opacity of the water as it's going further starts to adjust the picture here. And this is a much further away shot. I mean, they zoom out pretty far from here.
Andrew says I'm the same way either way. A lot of time and effort.
Yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
agreed.
100%. But I think they've done a better job blending this in when it's this, can opener. And then almost as soon as it shifts here, notice how blue it is.
It does seem like an odd decision to make it go from a can opener to this fluid like bean. I don't know what the decision, if this is faked. I don't know what the decision, why
Right.
that decision was
And
made.
notice how as soon as it starts transforming, we're still getting some of that blue haze, but it's already becoming much darker.
Oh, I didn't read the title. Alien-looking creature transforming near ocean floor at over 3,700 feet. So this is
Video
apparently
from
3,700 feet. Well, I guess if I knew how to
ROV.
convert meters, I would have been already know that. But um,
But they still have a bit of that, which is really good. And as it gets closer, again, we would expect that to go away. Like here, I would say it's comped fairly well.
mhm. Oh,
And as it gets closer, we're going to expect it to become less and less blue because
yeah.
it's closer to us. There's much less water, and I keep wanting to call it atmosphere, but it's the
Mhm.
opposite of atmosphere when it's underwater. Like here, this is selling pretty well. And as it gets close, it becomes less and less blue, which is what we'd expect to see. But it's starting to fall away here. And it's like it would get darker or it would get bluer at that point. And it's not like as far as away as it was before, it's not quite returning to that same level of blue haze. I mean, it is
Mhm.
closer for sure.
Yeah, I don't.
It's pretty well done. It's pretty well done.
Yeah,
It's pretty well done.
I don't know how much time is too much time to dwell on these things.
Yeah, we got
I
I
feel
think
like it's very interesting to me, anyways. And
yeah.
the more you talk
Well,
about it, the more I'm with you. Like, look at all this like
but that shadow,
shading of the white here
so
too, like the
yeah.
coloring.
So
It's amazing
we
to
have a
me.
few more minutes before it's going to get mad and kick me off. But one of the things that I do notice that I really love is that if this is CG, they had to have done basically a full environment sim here. I think that some of these particles were probably done in post with some sort of particle system, but we're also getting some volumetric lighting. So this blue haze that we're getting
Hmm.
is because of particles that exist in the atmosphere, or in this case, in the water, that the further and further back you get, the more and more of them there are. So they're occluding more and more
Hmm.
of your view and actually reflecting more and more light off of them into your eyes. And that is what creates God rays. If you ever see God rays happen in a movie, that's because there are particles in the atmosphere that are catching the light and reflecting that back into your
Hmm.
eye. And not only do we get the shadow from this creature, which is pretty cool, we're getting light from around here from a couple different
Hmm.
areas. We got light here, we got some light coming on this way. And you can actually see that not only does the shadow exist, but you can see this arc. I'm gonna try to pause
So
it right where
my
it's really
question is why
obvious.
aren't these lights on it reflecting down here? I mean,
Well,
maybe a distance
this seems
thing.
like it's going above that at this
Okay.
exact moment in time. But notice right here, we have the main shadow here. I guess I should actually start drawing because that's what I have this whole point for.
Yeah.
Is I have the main shadow from the creature down here, but we're also going to see this kind of shaft of shadowing happening like here, like God rays. It's almost an inverted God ray as it moves, which means that they not only had to fill this whole 3D scene with the ground plane that this is all going to exist on that will have the shadow here, but then also volumetric lighting to allow that sort of cascading effect to happen there as
Is
well.
this
So I'm
light
gonna
reflecting as well over here? Like over here? Like this light that I've highlighted right here?
Yeah, the light coming directly from the top. I don't know if that's coming from the piece we saw over there on the left before, but I'm gonna go ahead and play this real quick. And again, just kind of pay attention to this part right here. Don't focus on the actual shadow down at the bottom. Pay attention to this kind of shadow that's existing
Okay.
right here. It's not really a shadow. It's essentially an inverted God ray. Let's play through this. Mouse play. See how it's casting
Yeah.
that. That's full. That's a full
There we go.
simulation that you have to do to have that. Something I am noticing here, though, is pay attention to the shadow here. This is pretty uneven terrain. We can see that this is kind of like
Mhm.
down here deeper, then this part kind of comes up, and then it kind of drops down a little bit, and it comes back up. And the shadow feels a little flat to me. It's incredibly diffused, which I would expect to see with this kind of light. But as it goes from here over,
I believe you got the
yeah,
shadow
I
from
don't
the
know.
machine on there.
Yeah, so there's where that other light is coming from, is from that
Oh,
machine
okay.
there.
I don't
Um,
know.
it's not a terribly turbulent floor, so that could be just pretty natural from that look. But I would expect to see at least a little bit more from that. Um, yeah, this is cool. I love this. This is awesome. I think that they did a wonderful job with it.
All right. Um. So I wonder if is it gonna kick you off of Zoom or just the face video?
Yeah, I think it's gonna do the whole thing.
Because we could just do the face video on Discord, right? And just still do the whiteboard on Zoom or the whatever we're doing. I don't know.
No, because the Zoom is gonna end.
Oh, it's just gonna end the entire call.
Yeah.
Oh, gee, come on, Zoom.
I have the ability to do longer ones, so I don't know why it's being pissy. I got to go ahead and figure that out.
Well, it's because I
Um,
don't, maybe.
it
Um, we
shouldn't matter.
we had other videos, and I don't know, like maybe this discussion went on longer than people wanted. Maybe it didn't. That's kind of the feedback we want to know. I thought it was
Sure.
great because you were educating us. Um, I did have like a question I wanted to throw out. I'll throw that out like as a poll. And when we start this up, this is just kind of trial run, trying to figure out how we wanted to do it. Like so with we can discuss that after. Any feedback's appreciated before we get kicked off the Zoom. Thanks everybody for watching.
Yeah,
Let us know
this is a
what you
trial
think.
run. We'll have more ideas and some other things that we're
Oh
gonna do
yeah, yeah, yeah.
to
This was
make
just
this.
us just doing one video to kind of like see how it all worked and all that stuff. So thanks for your time, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Love, peace.
And I like that you did this one because this one was tough.
Uh,
This was one of the harder ones. I
that's
love
the
that.
best one I
That's
got.
awesome. Yeah, it's good. It's a good one.
It's all downhill from here. No, I'm just kidding.
You'll find more. I believe in you.
Oh, I will.
Awesome.
All right.
Awesome.
Bye
Thanks, guys.
bye.